Most presenters fail to consider the importance of where to stand when presenting. In today's show, we will go into some detail on how to adjust for different venues, how to engage with your audience, and things to avoid. Welcome back to this weekly edition every Tuesday of the Cutting Edge Japan Business Show. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story. I'm the president of Dale Carnegie Training Japan and the best-selling author of Japan Sales Mastery. We are bringing the show to you from our High Performance Center here in Akasaka in Minato-ku, the business center of Tokyo. Why the cutting edge? In this show, we are looking at the critical areas for success in business in Japan. We want to help advance everyone's thinking so that we can be at the forefront, at the cutting edge of how to flourish in this market. Before we get into this week's topic, here's what caught my attention lately. The curriculum for general courses taught in high schools, which has remained untouched since the current system was established after World War II, will be reformed as part of a plan to drastically revamp secondary education. This reform reflects a sense of crisis among educational authorities about declines in the amount of time that high school students spend studying and their willingness to study. 9.3% of first-year junior high school students said they do not study on weekends, with the figure rising to 25.4% for first-year high school students. In other news, the Mitsubishi UFJ Financial Group banking unit executive, Saiko Nanri, wants to change Japan's long-standing culture of drinks between managers and employees. Companies have long encouraged such parties after work to give workers the chance to break down barriers with their bosses in an informal setting. Nanri has told her team that she won't hold a gathering, saying they're unproductive and unfair to parents of young children. Her stance calls into question old work habits blamed for hindering productivity and discouraging women from remaining in the workforce. Finally, almost half of the rail lines run by JR Hokkaido are unprofitable. About 2/3 of lines operated by JR Hokkaido have considered seeking financial assistance in order to keep their respective routes open, while the remaining third are leaning toward shutting the lines down due to a dearth of passengers. This is episode number 85, and we're talking about, well, where should I stand when I'm presenting? それでは行きましょう. So let's get going. Usually, this isn't even a question for most presenters because the organisers have already set up the room when you arrive. Our speaking spot has been designated for us, but have we been designated a spot by experts in public speaking or by the venue crew who usually just haul chairs, lug tables around and set up the stage? Sadly, the coalescence between expertise in public speaking and membership of the logistics team is rare. So where should we stand? This will depend on the venue size, the illumination of the room, the size of the audience, the layout of the stage, where the screens are located, and what you want to achieve. I attended an effective talk where the stage was empty, yet the speech suddenly got underway with no speaker in sight. He was actually wearing a Lavelle microphone and was behind the audience at the rear of the room. The acoustics of that hall, however, gave no indication of where he was standing, and so it created a buzz as the assembled masses tried to place the speaker's location with the voice they could all hear. He then strode manfully to the stage and continued his oration. As an attention getter, to break through all the clutter in the heads of the audience was very effective. And he did that just by varying his speaking spot from where everyone usually starts. If we are using a screen, then is it hoisted high above us? Are there two giant screens on the left and right, or is it our height at the centre of the stage? In smaller venues, the screen is normally at our height and usually set up such that the podium is on the audience right of the stage. No particular thought has gone into this location, and the choice is purely random, often linked more closely to power outlets and cabling considerations than the speaker's effectiveness. Stand on the audience left of the screen so that the audience can read your facial expression and body language, and then move their eyes right to read the text or images on the screen. We need left to right, so this is a natural, or we read left to right, it's a natural progression, so we always want the screen to be subordinate to us. So, set the proceedings up such that they have to look at you first, rather than the slides on the screen. Our face is 1,000,000,000,000 times more powerful as a communication tool than anything that is on that screen. If there are giant screens above, then the chances are the venue is pretty large and the stage will be quite wide. Rather than being stuck in one place, work the stage area. I don't mean nervous, fidgety, random pacing across the stage as I've seen done by many amateur presenters. I mean move right to the very apron of the stage and to the extremes, and then engage with your audience left side, right side. Just be careful of that edge that you don't fall off, because it can easily happen. When we're fully engaged in our audience and we miss the peripheral sight of the edge, down we go. Start in the middle of a large stage, as close as you can get to your audience. Remember that those seated at the back or up on the first, second or third tiers of the seating, to them, you are the size of a peanut. Yes, they have the giant screens, but try to bring your physical presence as close to your audience as you can to create a closer connection. Move slowly to the extreme left and then stop. Now we can engage everyone on this side of the room. After a few minutes, move slowly back to the centre and stop. Now move slowly over to the extreme right and stop. Then slowly back to the centre, by which time it will be getting very close to your oration. I might also add that if the venue is large, then really exaggerate your gestures and expressions. The scale of the venue requires that larger versions of you are needed to enable you to engage the audience and work the room. Get to the venue early and go sit in the most distant seats. That is when you realise how small the speaker is when on stage, and that you have to big it up more. Find out more when we come back from the break. If you want to become a fully competent and confident presenter, then do the High Impact Presentations course. We are all being judged when we speak, be it in the internal team meeting or in a public environment, be it the big bosses, clients, or an industry audience. Everyone is evaluating us. Don't blow it. Get the best training on the planet. Do the High Impact Presentations course now in either Japanese or English. The bestseller, Japan Sales Mastery, is the new Bible of selling in Japan. To sell to Japanese buyers, you need to create long-term partner-level trust, fully understand Japanese buyers' real needs, convince buyers with your solutions, overcome their hesitation, fear, and doubt, know how to ask for the order, ensure repeat orders, This book is the product of 30 plus years in the trenches, selling in Japan. Order Japan Sales Mastery now. Welcome back. And here's some information on presenting. On July 8, we will run our Successful Public Speaking course. On July 10th and 11th, and later on November 13th and 14th, we will hold our High Impact Presentations course. And that's in Japanese. On July 16 and 17, we'll hold the same course, High Impact Presentations, in English. Now, back to where we left off. You might be thinking you have to stand where the podium is located. Why? With the automatic slide advances available today, we can be highly mobile. If the clicker isn't working well, then enlist a colleague as a slide advancer to man the laptop and move the slides on your signal. Or you can just stroll back to the laptop and do it yourself. Don't get stuck behind this podium because we can't access all of our body language if you just get stuck there. If you are stuck behind a podium, then be sure that as much of your upper body as possible is visible. This might require asking the venue staff for a small platform on which to stand behind the podium. The microphone arrangements may make that tricky, depending on the height of the stand, if the one they put there. If you need to remove the microphone from the stand, then do so, and stand as tall as possible so you can be seen more easily. If the venue is smaller, then we can stand left of the screen, but we can employ 3 strategic distances in combination with the content of what we are saying. We start speaking when we're about halfway between the back of the stage and the audience, the neutral or green zone. If we want to add strong support to a micro point we're delivering, then we move forward to as close to the audience as we can get, the intense or red zone. We don't stay there long because the pressure is too strong for the audience. We should move back to the middle. The moving back to the middle, that lessens the intensity. If we want to make a bigger, more macro point, we can move to the rear of the stage, the big picture or blue zone, then go back to the green zone and the neutral area again. These changes of distance relate to what we are talking about, so there is no consistent pattern necessarily. In fact, we don't want any consistent patterns, or we will become predictable to our audience. They switch us off because they've anticipated what we will do, and they soon lose interest. Normally, lighting issue really isn't a problem unless some amateur stagehand or do-gooder or volunteer decides your screen needs more contrast and they turn off or dim the lights. Stop whatever you're doing and request them to turn those lights back on. We need to be seen, and we need to see the faces of our audience. We need to gauge the reaction to what we're saying and to check if they're losing their interest or not. A speaker recently gave a TED talk here in Tokyo, but to accommodate the various cool technological features such as holograms, an invisible screen was separating the speaker from the audience. Well, it was invisible to the audience, and they could see the speaker, but not the other way around. That is a nightmare right there because you are talking to a screen, but not to an audience. You can't even see the audience. It always pays to check the speaking arrangements before you speak, or get there early and try and fix up any logistical items which may negate the impact of your talk. Sometimes in smaller, more intimate venues like clubs, the lighting is rather poor. We can use the projector to throw up light, or we can look for spotlights to try and bring some light to us and the audience. We can also try and stand very close to the audience so that our physical presence will compensate for the lack of light. If we are on a panel and everyone is seated, we should stand when we give our initial remarks, if possible. Thereafter, we may be seated as we back and forth on the various worthy points, under consideration with our panel members. But by standing, we use our full arsenal of body language capability and projection to make our argument. When you can stand up and speak without relying on having notes cradled in your lap, you gain more credibility and more projection for your argument. In Japan, the crowded space on the raised dais between your seat and the obligatory low table may not allow it in panel discussions, but don't be afraid to stand up and talk rather than having to remain seated if you can manage it. To be an effective speaker, we need to include consideration of the best logistics needed to support our efforts. Don't rely on the clueless to prepare the venue properly. Instead, have a clue ourselves and always be in command of our environment. The Cutting Edge Japan Business Show is here to help you succeed in Japan. Subscribe on YouTube, share it with your family, friends, and colleagues. Remember, become a regular. Thank you for watching this episode, and let's hit that subscribe button. Our website details are on screen now. enjapan.dale.carnegie.com. Awesome value, so please check it out. Also, please leave me some feedback on YouTube. I would love to know how this show is helping you and what other topics you're interested in for me to cover. Remember, I'm here, free resource to help you. So just tell me, how can I help you the best? You might also enjoy my podcast. Look for the Leadership Japan series, the Presentations Japan series, and the Sales Japan series, wherever you get your podcasts. In episode 86, we're talking about the 106 centimetre salesman. Find out more about that next week. So, yoroshiku onegai itashimasu. Please join me for the next episode of the Cutting Edge Japan Business Show. We are here to help you. We've only got one direction in mind for you and your business, and that is up.